Mr. Art Sims right here.
Yeah, Art was some amazing movies. He's the voice of all those movies. This is his art. So I think you have two things here that we should definitely pay attention to. Number one, we should understand what this place is, this museum, and go around and please see what Lloyd has to offer you and all the different artifacts that he has. This is probably the largest collection of African American artifacts outside of Schaumburg. Might even be bigger than Schaumburg. And if you go through the rare books, all the different things that you'll see in here, and I think it's important. It's important that you see and understand. I think it's something we should start supporting, and I think we should start supporting Mr. Art Sims.
Amen.
Okay. So on that note, I want to say thank you all.
Thank you very much.
And I'm going to leave you in about 10 minutes, but it's always a pleasure because hopefully economics and our culture, those are two things that we have to work on.
Now I'm going to bring up Tanya Hart. And,
Thank you. Good afternoon to everyone. How are you? Good. I'm so glad you're here. When this exhibit opened during Black History Month, I had the pleasure of being invited to interview Art about the work. And we talked a great deal about his background and about what the exhibit was going to be, and hopefully a lot of you had a chance to come through and see it, and if you didn't, this is the first time, we're glad you're here. So he asked me again to come back to do the exit interview, which is what I'm here to do today, and I'm going to, I don't even know if I need this, I'll let him, okay. Oh, okay.
we're good.
We're good? Okay. Just want to say that Art and I are both Michiganders originally. We both are Spartans. We both went to Michigan State. And so there's kind of a camaraderie here that we have. And so I'm very proud of him, and a lot of us from that area of the country and that particular school have actually done well in the world of media. So just to get us going, and I'm going to, for those of you who aren't familiar with Art's work, I'm going to talk, we're going to talk about his background and how he got started. But because of all of the news of the world today that you just cannot ignore, you look at his work and how prolific he's been, and you look at the civil rights movement from 50 years ago, and you look at the news today, and it's the same news. And so I'm looking at what you've done. You did your job very well. You were a visionary. Clearly, you did your job well, but apparently the rest of us haven't done a good job, because we are right where we started out 50 years ago. What do we need to do? And obviously Norm mentioned it, we're lacking in a variety of areas, still in economics, still in education, but what can we do today using our culture, using film, and using things like the stuff that you've done to help us move forward from here? And I know that's a tough question.
I think the work that I did, again, like my job was to get consumers such as yourself to come go see the films. But at the end of the day, when I started the company, I started as an art studio. It was a graphic design studio. The purpose of it was to come up with interesting images for Spike and New Jack City and the Hughes Brothers and Lucas and those guys. But my goal was to, I've always wanted us, and you say from a cultural standpoint, I'm trying to think if I'm answering the question correctly, I want us to look beautiful. And I've always wanted that, I guess, since back in the 70s. You'll see those pieces across the way that were in the auction today. Those are beautiful pieces. If you look at those pieces, you think that those are pieces that were done currently in 2016. I think it's important that for me to do beautiful images about us, in our films. I mean, television, music. I come out of the music background. I've done amazing music work, and I went into the film world. But I think it's important that I continue to make beautiful images, whether they're movies, whether they're T-shirts, whether they're digital images, that people can really, you know, you look at it and you say, you know, I see the three heads in the sky, I see the star. I'm not, okay, I'm not sure I want to see the movie, but I want people to look at my work and say, wow, it's not, the concept is interesting, but boy, was that beautifully executed. I really get a feeling about this movie. I mean, New Jack City, wow, is that about a guy? Is that how drug dealers really look? Do they really pack guns like that? Do they smoke the narcotics on? Like, I mean, I was trying to get people to capture, do the right thing. I was trying to create this kind of a Disney make-believe with Spike and Totiro and the artwork that was done on the floor. Like, that was done by a lot of famous artists that I work with. But I was trying to make an image that makes you individually appreciated. Now, I'm not sure if I'm answering the question correctly in terms of helping other people in our society right now to have a better appreciation of our work. Movies and TV is what we look and see in our digital lifestyle on our internet. So I think it's important that the images that I create are positive and upbeat. My company is based on the Bible verse, Mark chapter 11, verse 24. Whatever things you desire when you pray, believe you receive it and you have it. So my company was based on my relationship I had when I went to Crenshaw Christian Center, still do. And it was important that, I remember there's a Bible verse that says, whatever things that are lovely, honest, of a good report, of any virtue, of any praise, think on those things. So I was trying to make my company make images that were positive and upbeat and pleasing to people. And you don't even see a lot of my campaigns on I don't do horror films. I don't do, that's just not my thing. I mean, with all due respect, there's images that are very powerful that are done in horror, but I just don't like, with all due respect, I don't like to blow up Satan. I don't like building him up in terms of the types of movies like that perpetuate negativity. I like to do things that are just really honest and important films, and I was fortunate with Spike Lee, to do wonderful images that are positive and upbeat. But I'm not sure if I answered your question correctly.
Well, I think you did, and I think what people should probably, maybe what they don't know, where you grew up and where we grew up
Detroit.
at the time, in Detroit, at the time that we grew up, it was actually a good time for America. And things were, even though it was kind of the civil rights movement, we all grew up in an era and in homes that our parents, they may not have had a lot of money, but they had beautiful homes. And everybody dressed fabulously. Fabulously. We all know this. And so, yes, that's what I'm saying. So and I know Detroit wasn't the only place that happened, but it was very specific there, because that's where we were at the time. So I think that really shows in your work in many ways, because that's what you came from.
Yeah, well, Detroit, Detroit, Michigan, during that period was tough, right?
It was tough, but it was still beautiful in many ways. Because people, like I said, people dressed to the nines. The cars, the car industry ruled the world at that time and the U.S. economy. So everybody, the cars.
And also, too, I remember Motown was very powerful during that period.
That's right.
And if you remember, everybody at Motown, they were always sharp. They were dressed incredible. From the Temps to Supremes to Smoke. If you didn't look good in Detroit, if you didn't look like Motown, then you weren't cool. You weren't happening.
Just weren't happening.
And so I think probably those beautiful things and the beauty of Detroit and the car industry and those types of things, I think that made me, you're absolutely right, it made you think more positively about our culture and where I was going. you know, and I mean, I still think that Motown should have not left Detroit. I think it should have stayed there. I mean, I think, you know, with Sound of Philadelphia and comes like that, Barry should have stayed in Detroit. That was my fault. But anyway,
But you came here though, and when you came to LA, and you started really with the music industry, and if you noticed when you came in, there were a lot of album covers. Many of those belong to Art because that's a piece of how you transitioned from album covers into movie posters.
I worked at Sony Entertainment in New York when I was a junior at Michigan State University. I got a wonderful job there. I worked with the Sound of Philadelphia. Those guys. You got more. Yeah, you see those all. And you know, and I enjoyed working in music for quite some time. It was a beautiful visual experience. And I remember I worked on projects for the Sound of Philadelphia in New York, and then I left there and I came to Los Angeles. I loved it here. Then I worked for Capitol Records for quite some time, and I have a number of images there that I worked on a project called Bob Welch, French Kiss, which was nominated for a Grammy. We didn't win, we were close. But I've been in some books and some of the top album covers. But what happened with the music industry is that, as you know, when Apple came and bought it, the industry started to take a sag down. But I was working with great people like the Gap Band and a number of fantastic people, Bryson. And again, I was trying to make images that were very upbeat and positive tempo images that people like Warm Water. I think I did some work for the Waters.
Yes, you did.
I sure did, yeah. And I loved it. And then as time went on, I got a transition out of from music, into film that happened through my relationship with the Color Purple and Quincy Jones, because I was working with Quincy. And Quincy, wanted me to be involved with, and I worked with Stevie Wonder and people like that. My whole thing at that time was to try to work with celebrities. And then after I got with the Color Purple, and it just blew up. And then after Color Purple, I met Spike, and then I did School Days and went on from there. So it was a continuation of the creative work. And now I'm using the same work. I mean, even at the end of the day, when I do digital work nowadays, whether it's for Instagram or different companies, it all has to be visual. It has to start somewhere, and it has to start on a pen and paper. It has to start with a drawing, and then that idea becomes a digital idea. But all ideas have to become a visual component of print. Because otherwise it can't exist. I mean, otherwise you're just using Photoshop and Illustrator and those different programs to make images that don't have, I don't know. I love the digital component pieces, but I also like using my books, and I look at the images and being inspired by that. Because I think that's where everything began. I mean, that's what I love about the Mayme Clayton Gallery. Lloyd over there, but the beautiful pieces that I've seen here. That's one reason why I have this exhibition here, because I wanted people to see the importance of the Mayme Clayton Gallery and the literature here. It's just spectacular, and we need to really make sure we make this place a very successful place. People who come here, tell your friends about it, to visit, because this is an important place, because this is all this is what we have left as us as a people. And I think if we don't nurture it and grow it and make it more successful, we end up in these situations that we're having now with the police and people, we're hurting each other when we shouldn't be doing these things, because social media is so big now that and I love Black Lives Matter, they're an incredible group, but I think what happens is when we get on social media, people take it to the next level, which is not necessary. We're just protesting, but we want to make sure that our culture maintains the integrity that I was trying to put together on images here, as well as going forward and making sure that we keep a positive attitude. But I'm not sure if I answered your question. So.
No, I think so, because I think that part of what we are seeing is, and Norm sort of reflected on it, is a lack of us looking good. What you did was make us look good. Even you know, even if you look at what can I say? You know, look at Bamboozled over there. Now, somebody's gonna say, okay, I do too. And somebody's gonna say, okay, that's really going back and looking at those, we were talking about Sambo, or those, you know, kind of what had been negative images. But how do you see this, looking at Bamboozled, and if you didn't see the movie, you kind of have to know what the context of the movie is. Yeah. But for those who maybe don't know the context of the movie, if you could just tell them a little bit about the movie, and then why you chose that particular image, and why you feel that despite all that, that image is still beautiful. And then we'll get back into the whole cultural and economic piece after.
Yeah, Bamboozle, you know, actually Bamboozle is one of my more favorite images. Again, that's me explaining our culture. As African Americans, black people were used to sell products in America. That's the truth. And it was funny because, and still are, absolutely, you know, with Nike and the opportunities and things they're doing here. But black people were used to sell products. And that's what Spike's movie was about. And I was getting a lot of feedback from the community about, oh, this is a bad movie to make because, you know, the white studios made this movie about bamboozle, and they're using pickaninnies with watermelon and cotton fields, and it's very negative. And I told the gentleman that came to me from the Nation of Islam, I said, look, I own a African-American ad agency, but me and Spike agreed to do this concept. I know it's negative and I know it's not positive, but it's a controversial image. It's supposed to make you upset. It's supposed to make you angry in a sense like, wow, we look like that. We had big old watermelon with a cotton patch and the nanny around the top of the head with the big red lips. You know, those things, I did that on purpose so that it would educate you. It would make you understand what this movie was about. I want to make it as controversial and offensive as possible. Not to make you see the movie, but to understand that this is a movie that you need to see, that is an important part of our history and why you should understand what the movie is about. So sometimes I think images have to be negative and also positive in a way, so it gets you to get an understanding and awareness. There's a way to do that without being offensive or without being hateful. I mean, I didn't use the Ku Klux Klan in it. I didn't use images that are so negative that, you saw Trump when he's using like the Star of David with Hillary. I mean, come on, man, it's not a sheriff's star, it's a Star of David. So I'm just saying that, I mean, we as African, we're very smart people from a cultural standpoint, and what we look at. That's why we have to understand that we're not a bunch of idiots just looking at images and we want to go see it because of that image. No, we're very particular about what we like and what we don't like. That's why so many African American films fail, because they're just not, our television or issues, the way, like for example, I don't want to talk about film and things like that, but I mean, I know they got a movie coming out called Shots Fired at Fox. My friend Gina Brightwood directed it, but my problem is that it's a movie about a black cop killing a white kid. I mean, that doesn't happen. And I think it's unfair to make us try to watch it. I mean, the studios are saying, oh, we got to get a white kid in here. Let's make a white kid get killed by a black cop, and we bring in black prosecutors. It's just, these things it's not, how do I say it? It's not natural and it's not correct. And the studios are not doing their education in terms of how they market to us. They're not thinking. We're a very intellectual group of people, more so than people that are what, I believe that. And I believe that you have to be very careful on what you do.
Well, interestingly, this year started off, certainly in my world, with hashtag Oscars So White. And in fact, that's where we kind of started this conversation. Since then, the Academy, thanks to Cheryl Boone Isaacs, has invited 600 I think 80 some other people with a good percentage of 41% are now